Nicholas Mata and Manuel Torres, they're gone. Coming up this weekend, a catchweight fight at 160 pounds. We have a guy whose nickname is The Cage. It's Ignacio Bahamondes out of Chile. And Matt, we've had Diego Rivas and Ignacio Bahamondes for Chilean UFC fighters. Bahamondes now taking on the Samurai Ghost. It's a weak one. Trey Ogden, the owner of Momentum Jiu-Jitsu, or Momentum MMA rather. And for Ogden, he was due Manuel Torres. So this, again, a couple of weeks ago, Ogden cut the weight. He weighed in at 155.5 pounds. Torres couldn't make the weight on Friday, or just couldn't make the walk to the scale. So ultimately, Ogden now gets to make that dreaded double cut a couple of weeks later.
160
to 160 pounds against Bahamondes, who was due the Southpaw striking, aptly nicknamed Iron Nicholas Mata. And when you look at a matchup like this, Ogden was due a tricky Mexican first round finishing, really good boxing striker in Torres, and Bahamondes was due a southpaw striker out of Brazil in Mata. And now Bahamondes gets kind of a bad stylistic matchup and a guy who can definitely pop the jab and work the boxing of Trey Ogden, but you see the shiny submission category in the wins column for Trey Ogden. 11 of those 16 wins are by submission, and it gives you a little bit of pause when you look at this pair.
If Trey Ogden pops the jab, he's getting lit up for 15 minutes. Trey Ogden has good boxing, but the problem is, if he uses those long-range boxing techniques, he's gonna get kicked to the legs and to the body, and there are just more threats from a guy like Bahamondes. I'm not saying the things Bahamondes does well, he does as well as Ogden, but there is much more variety to the types of strikes he throws.
If you look at Bahamondes growing up in Chile, his dad was a kickboxing instructor. He was a WKN amateur champ coming up through. He moved to South Florida at 16 by himself, not knowing English. And then at 17, started his amateur career, and then he continued on. His, third, fourth pro fight, he was losing by submission of Preston Parsons, who's a UFC welterweight that had an incredibly competitive fight in the last card against Trevin Giles. So for Bahamondes, he comes up through, face a few speed bumps, gets a giant win over on Dana White's Contender Series, and in that fight, you had Bahamondes weighing 168.5. His opponent, Gomez, 5'8", 174 pounds, a juicy boy. And it was Bahamondes' kick that was able to get him the win. Now, Bahamondes' UFC debut against an older Canadian, John Makdessi.
It kind of set the game plan, though, didn't it, for a guy like Bahamondes? If you can get on the inside and disrupt some of the rhythm that he does have to generate to get his kicks involved, you can have success. But the thing about Makdessi is, and I know we've ragged on him a couple times in this channel, he ate big shots in that fight, to his credit. He didn't just go down after the one big shot, because for Bahamondes, I know he lost that fight, but I don't think that's one of those fights where you lose a ton of stock from it, because he still had moments where I thought he looked decent.
Yeah, and the weirdest part about it was Makdessi was over 35. He's coming off more than a year layoff off a major ACL injury. So Bahamondes split decision loss, although majority thought that Makdessi won. The fight against Roosevelt Roberts, if in 2021 you're playing along at home and you're thinking, geez, like there was some really good knockouts in 2021. Yeah, Bahamondes against Roosevelt Roberts didn't win the big time award, but it was definitely an honorable mention. He had a really competitive first round, second round, third round. Roberts was a tired, and now he's on The Ultimate Fighter with Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor. And then the last time out, Bahamondes versus Rongju. Rongju missed weight. That was his last fight in the UFC. Yeah. He dyed his hair pink. And then in the third round, Rongju similarly got tired, gets a takedown. He kind of went really long and army. He was able to get the double leg takedown. Bahamondes gets back up. Rongju tries the same right hand into the takedown. Bahamondes gets the front choke, rolls, and then he ends up getting the submission.
But that's been the weird thing about Bahamondes. He does a lot of big actions, and he relies on kicks, and he struggles to make weight. Does he have bad cardio, though? Not really, which is weird because everything else about his game would kind of suggest that that's a pillar that would kind of crumble under any kind of pressure. But for Bahamondes, to his credit, I guess he doesn't have overwhelming kind of output, so it does help him pace himself a bit. But he does throw a lot of kicks. Again, I can't stress that enough. But he can do it into the third round, and that's why I do think the game plan of a guy like Ogden is going to be very important. Because if he's dedicated to the takedown and to the grappling, I think Ogden can have a lot of success. Because you know when you don't have to worry about head kicks and spinning wheel kicks, when you've got a guy on his back in his full guard, but he's going to have to eat a lot of damage, I think, in some of those longer ranges for him to get the fight to where he's comfortable at. And that's why I think this fight's a very difficult one to predict, because Bahamondes, is he going to have success in the long range? Of course he is, but we have seen him get uncomfortable with guys who have good boxing, and Trey Ogden is not some unknown commodity on the feet. Like, he can work the jab, use the combinations into a takedown. So I think Ogden has to have a 9.5 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 game plan, but I don't think he doesn't have the skills to win this fight.
Well, and I mean, for Trey Ogden, you're talking about cardio, personal trainer, owner of a gym that was formerly known as the Satellite of Glory MMA and Fitness. Now it has since switched names, but if you consider for him Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and you look at it for a guy like Bahamondes, and it has to go with saying he seemingly has the scar tissue of Nate Diaz, because in these last number of fights, he gets cut open, he gets bloodied. It's kind of been a bit of a staple, and especially when you have so much amateur experience in the kicking sports. And if you look at it for Trey Ogden, it's one of those ones where if he's able to mix his overall game like he did his last time out as a big underdog against Daniel Zellhuber, turn away another big prospect, this is that opportunity. But for Bahamondes, the trouble is in the Roberts fight, in the fight against Rongju, Bahamondes won the first 2 rounds against Rongju, but he tends to get tagged a lot by the jab. He tends to get hit by the 1-2s because he holds his hands out. He does hold them pretty high, but he holds them out, and he gets hit right straight through that guard. And when you look at him, he also tends to duck to the left a lot, where a lot of fighters, if they catch him with an uppercut or a hook, he could get hit, he could get hurt in some of these fights. But if you do consider it and you look at the overall game of Ignacio Bahamondes, my big pluses are the kicks, not just to the body, the teep to the body, the front kick to the head.
And they're fast, not just powerful.
But I also have flexible hips, because when he throws his leg kick, there's no setup and there's no reset.
Is he a Shakira fan? Do they lie?
I don't know if they do lie, but Latin America, they know what's up. But Matt, when you look at this one, La Jaula, as I said, he is a pretty big favorite. He will switch stances, but when he switches stances, he's ambidextrous in both. He's kind of like the Pat Vendetti of MMA when I was watching his fight. So I did like that. He switched over to southpaw, throw boxing combinations, switch back over to orthodox, throw the same boxing combinations.
Wander Franco is my favorite switch hitter in the league. Who's yours?
Favorite switch hitter. It was always Victor Martinez way back when.
I'm thinking either Jose Ramirez or Wander Franco.
Jose can get it done. But Matt, when you do consider it in this matchup, again, Bahamondes is the favorite, Trey Ogden the underdog. We have a look at the topology votes. Surprise to us there, to you. I'm going to say over under 80% for La Jaula.
I think they'll be over.
I think they're going to be over. You looked at these.
I haven't. I'm just getting off to a hot
start. 1,043 total votes, 91% Bahamondes, 62% by knockout for the 9% that have Ogden, 69% by decision. Matt, who do you have in the matchup?
I agree with everything you said about some of the defensive liabilities that Bahamondes does have in his game, but I just think if Trey Ogden strikes with Bahamondes for 15 minutes, that's a tough way to win this fight if you're Trey Ogden.
Again, probably won't.
If he does implement the grappling, I think he can have success, but Bahamondes is a guy who can threaten a little bit with the submissions while he is defending takedowns. He isn't just a terrible defensive wrestler. He can dig for underhooks. He is quite strong in some of those positions. So I think for those reasons, I do have Bahamondes, but I agree with a lot of the red flags that you bring up. So I do think Ogden does have an opportunity to win this fight. I just think on the feet, it's going to be a little bit too steep of a climb.
Bahamondes has good takedown defense numbers on the UFC website. Roosevelt Roberts went 0 of 12. Rongju went 1 of 4. Are they giant wrestlers? No. So that's why the percentage is very, very high. With Trey Ogden, when he was going to be taking on Manuel Torres, we differed on that pick. We did, and I had Trey Ogden. And in this matchup, give me the big underdog again. I don't like the 2-time weight cut all that soon, but when I do look at a guy like Trey Ogden, he has all of those things that you like against a guy in Ignacio Bahamondes. I like the takedowns out of Ogden, and even if Bahamondes is trying to crowd the space, which he tends to do, even though he has the reach advantage and the height advantage, he fights in boxing distance for being that big of a guy at lightweight. So for those reasons, I like Trey Ogden in the matchup, as flashy as Bahamondes has been. We differ on the pick. I'm going Samurai Ghost. You're going with La Jaula. A big time matchup coming up on this weekend's card. Listen, on the main card, in the co-main event, hey, Gilbert Burns is taking on Jorge Masvidal. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.